good morning. Let's get started. Happy Thursday. Uh, Thank you for joining us again on Beyond the Pail. This is WASBO's monthly webinar for and by facility leaders. So good to see everybody. Beautiful day here. I'm in Oconomowoc today. So let me introduce. So my role, of course, as executive director is to be the welcoming and introduction guy and then get out of the way. So I'm going to introduce the stars of the panel, our usual co-hosts on Beyond the Pale, Jeremiah Johnson from Muskego, Joe Ledvina from La Crosse. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Hey, hey, Joe, I just have a kind of a mathematical question, sort of
Sure.
theoretical question for you. So just say that you had two teams that play in like to play football, like let's say like in the NFC North, just as totally hypothetical.
Yeah.
And one has a record of 6-3,
Yep.
and the other has a record of 5-3-1. And which team would have the better record?
Well, that's a great question. And doing math is really important when we figure out FTEs. But so this is a great start to today's lesson. But I think that what you're really talking about is the team that's 6-3 would be in first place, and the team that's 5-3-1 would be in third place. I think that's how that all works out.
I think it is. Jeremiah, do you agree with the math on that?
Are we talking about like Hall of Fame quarterbacks? Or are we talking about the record of this year's NFC North? Yeah.
We didn't say anything about those quarterbacks.
No.
We're
Yeah.
talking about the future Hall of Fame quarterback down there at Soldier Field. All right, enough of that nonsense. Well, hey, I guess we're talking staffing today. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah. Yeah, super excited. I think every district skins the cat just a little bit differently as far as like how we staff. And anytime I go to a conference, we're always picking each other's brains. How are you covering for this? What are you doing for labor shortages? Contracting out. So we're going to dive into a multitude of those topics as we get going today. And I guess I just start, Joe, how many people are in your department? Like all in total, maintenance, custodial, you, assistants. What does your department look like?
Yeah, so looking at your comparisons, your benchmarks there that you have, um, put it in the same category. We have 54 custodians that cover 1.5 million square feet of buildings. In the maintenance trades, we have what we call a craftsperson, and we have one individual that falls under that category. And then in grounds, we have four grounds individuals that take care of all of our athletic fields and gardens and everything that goes along with that. And then in supervisory administration, we have myself and three others, administrative assistant, and then two other managers. But that's primarily, and when I was looking at this, how does it break down for you? Because we're in charge of transportation and we're in charge of safety. And so those other positions kind of lead the way in those other areas.
Yeah, it's interesting. So for anybody that wants to try their hand at AI, if you type into ChatGPT your staffing model, your square footage, your acreage, and say, how do I compare to national averages? That's exactly where I pulled this from here. So there's I believe it's APPA standards and IFMA and other acronym places that are national. And this was kind of like compelling for us because it showed that we're significantly under the national benchmark. However, we're getting really good results. So this week we had a school board meeting and I shared our staffing model and I said, I'm not here to ask for more. I'm just showing that we're doing a lot with what we have. So like you, we have about 38 custodians, 3.5 maintenance grounds for about 200 acres-ish. We have myself and an assistant manager. And essentially, when you look at the national average, they're saying we should have about 72 employees. So I think it's a stretch, and maybe there's a district in the state that's doing that well, but I'm not aware of any of us that think they're overstaffed. I think this is all cautionary, though, as we talk about it, because you're supervising one of the biggest districts in the state. We're a little bit more middle of the road, and there's a lot of districts out there that might have a school or two that have three staff members that are really stretched thin. So I think it's relative to what you're operating with.
Yeah, I think one of the things and how it's changed over the years, and I'd ask in your staffing, but we've lost 10 staff members in our department in the last 20 years, and we've not reduced any square footage. In fact, if we look at that, we've probably gained a little bit more square footage, and we're doing more than we've ever done before. So, yeah, we're much leaner, and it becomes much more difficult at times to do the things that we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we over the last 10 years have gained about 200,000 square feet and haven't added a single staff member. It just stretched further as far as what everybody's doing. So for us, in order to accomplish that, many years ago, our district went to a modified cleaning schedule where it's not everything gets cleaned every night. We have specific areas that we're like, this needs to be cleaned every night. And then every other night, it's really a pick up the trash, just a cursory run through, which really buys like 10 minutes per space if you're not doing all the floors and everything. I will say culturally, when we did that way back then, it was really hard for teachers to get past. It was like, why isn't my space getting cleaned every night?
Mhm.
Now it's more culturally rough in our department because we have custodians that want to clean every night. And so they're stretching themselves too thin because they want to perform well for their teachers. So it's always an ongoing battle, and we just try to stick to the standard, but we understand there's some hiccups along the way.
For sure. And then I don't know how you work subbing, but we don't bring any subs when people are sick or on vacation. And so we're working shorthanded. Where it used to be in the past, we'd have 5 subs. They're full-time employees just filling in for people. We don't have that anymore because that's where we made our first cuts. And so if you have people gone there long term, you certainly address the situation a little bit differently. And we're doing the same things that you're doing in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's always compelling to me because our district celebrates having a 100% fill rate for teachers when they're out. So we use substitute services to come in. So it's 1-to-1. Our supervisor, Tim, does a great job of tracking when we have one person out, how many hours get filled of that full 8-hour shift. So we have one swing shift for our district that will flex his time around the district wherever the most important absence is. But we're lucky if we're like a 50% fill rate, and that's with people doing overtime, which is also an added expense.
Yeah, that's where we've really gone to is we allow people to work overtime, but I think you run the risk of burning them out, like you mentioned, especially when you look in terms of all the activities, and we'll talk about this more in detail later, but when you look at all the activities that are going on in our schools, it takes time away from their regular cleaning.
Yeah, yeah, right on. I thought
You
I'd
know,
dive
guys,
in.
I was wondering if sorry, Jeremiah, I didn't mean to
No, you're
talk
good.
over you. I was wondering, I was I was a financial guy, right? I wasn't a facility director in my career. Um, but it also, often seemed to me that some districts were really sort of undercapitalized, right? They just didn't have the um, if like the equipment necessary to be efficient,
Yeah.
right? I'm wondering how has that changed at all in terms of like the means and methods? Are we more efficient, than we used to be, or did that play any role?
Yeah, I'd say having good riding scrubbers is critical. We just got our first autonomous one, which is no cheap date either.
Mhm.
But to be able to scrub the halls versus a day and age when I started in the early thousands as a custodian, it wasn't uncommon to be mopping a ton of square
Yeah.
footage. So
Yeah.
you buy time there, Kaivacs, window cleaning systems. Some people are diving into autonomous vacuum cleaners. So anything to take the edge, but I don't know about you, Joe, but it seems like not only is the square footage grown, the expectations are always high for, cleanliness purposes, but then also activities and events that happen in our schools. I felt like when I started, like stuff was closed down. When school closed, it got dark, maybe you had a school basketball game, but we rent out our facilities more than our own usage in our district. So there's always something we're running towards, whether it's snow or that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. And actually, I had this written down because I think, yes, we are more efficient with the equipment that we have, but goes along with that, Mike, is that you have to have a replacement schedule for your equipment. And so when we've seen budgets tighten now that it starts to affect the equipment that we have too. And so our equipment's lasting longer than it ever has before, or we need it to last longer than before. But I think with good equipment, you can be much more efficient. So that kind of all fits into that category of figuring out how many FTEs you have. If you have good sound equipment that's reliable, that you know you can work with, we can be much more efficient.
I think you certainly get you get your business manager to kind of perk up when you're able to talk about like efficiency, return on investment, how, this will reduce labor costs or whatever. It'll make the labor more efficient, that kind of thing. It's just part of that annual negotiation between the facility director and the business manager, I think.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and Jeremiah talked about going to the board, and we go to the board on a regular basis. We call it Operational Expectations 12, where every year we have to give this report to the board. One of the reports, and we've started documenting much more, is doing work orders. So having a work order that teachers can fill out, or principals, or who any staff member can fill out above and beyond the cleaning of a classroom. So when things need to be done, fixed and done. And so last year we completed over 2,100 work orders. And that's really was eye-opening when we took that to the board to show them the number of staff we have and the amount of work that we're completing beyond our regular cleaning schedule and beyond our regular cleaning days that you talked about, Jeremiah.
Yeah, yeah. So dovetailing off all that, I think for a lot of us on the call today, and even myself, it's hard when you start in a position, you got multiple schools or even one school, to start with what your standard is. So we talked about every other day cleaning or every day cleaning, or some people are like get it when you can mode, which was really sad. But if you're able to take each space, and so we actually had an employee that had a surgery and he came back on light duty. So for a couple days, we had him go around the whole district with a laser pen that can kind of measure out each space. And we just had him document in something that you're looking at now, each space. What is the room number? What is the square footage of that room? And there are national standards that you could plug in, but just for simplicity's sake, what's the size of the room? And how long do you believe it takes to full clean that space? Andy Stefansson, who was formerly in New Berlin, had a pretty good methodology where he would even interview the custodian just to get their input and say, how long does it take you to do this? Then as a manager, really being like, okay, what does it really take? Maybe meeting in the middle, or maybe just taking their word for it and adding up all those minutes in a space to come up with what is the expectation for that full-time or part-time person. We've done a good job of like creating a map with a color code. And this is good as a visual for either school board or principals to see like, hey, like this is what the demand is for that full-time area. This is how much square footage it is. And on a light clean day, this is how much time it takes. And on a full clean day, this is how much time it takes. It takes some time to get here, but you have to establish like a benchmark for what your standard is. And for us too, it's been helpful because a lot of sometimes custodians will say, "Oh, my area is huge. The other person doesn't have a big of an area as me." We could take a look at every area in our district and say, "Look, we're average for what you're doing, and here's the data to show it in the event that a complaint is lodged." Do you have anything similar to this, Joe?
Yeah, yours is much more in detail than ours, but we have the color-coded maps with the amount of square footage for each one that we start with. And so we have that for every cleaning area in the district. And so we haven't broken it out to full clean time and that, but what we have done is where there's been some discrepancies, you talked about the custodians, one cleaning site is bigger than the other. One of the things that we've done is after we've established these, we sat down with our custodial staff in the schools and we asked them, okay, where are the discrepancies? What do you see as fair? And so we started out, we had the standard, but then we've allowed them to change those areas based on their experience working together as a team. That seems to have reduced some of those comments that you're talking about because we'd hear them all the time as well. But it's a great starting point with just the map. But I like what you've done with breaking that out a little bit further.
Nice. One thing that's helpful too is you can leverage. So if you got somebody that's a custodian, but they're really good at maintenance, you might give them a smaller area so that they have more time to take calls or repair things. or maybe they're in charge of whatever events happening in the gymnasium. So there's an understanding that this person has a little bit smaller of an area, but they're also taking all the calls and doing all the work orders. So that's been pretty common by us as well.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
of the things, and it'd be I'd like to hear what you call your staff members, but we have a building engineer, we call them. That's the day custodian who's in charge of virtually everything, who has a smaller cleaning area that you talked about, maybe the office area and some specific things early in the morning. Then we have custodial staff that work primarily second shift. And then at our bigger schools, middle and high schools, we have a nighttime engineer who does exactly what you're talking about, smaller cleaning area, but they do most of the fixes and things that come up during the course of that time. And so that's kind of how we've arranged those things as well.
Yeah, Mike.
Um, yeah, I spent most of my career kind of in that space between the school board and being in those administrative meetings when they're making budget decisions. And so that's kind of the, frame of mind I bring to this. I think that as I look back, when a facility director, I worked with some really good ones. Matt Newman and Greg Maru were both very good at this. Having well-defined, standardized cleaning routes where the job is really well detailed, um, was important. Almost from a defensive point of view, like you could say to the other administrators, look, we can't just cut a custodian. These are the routes. This is what these are folks are responsible for doing, and it helps justify the staffing level that you have, right? And you documenting that. And just one other, this is more of an aside, but often the administrators, because they're kind of desperate not to cut a teacher, which I understand, right? But they would say, we have to keep the cuts away from the classroom. And we would counter with, the custodians are literally in the classroom. And
Yeah.
so don't use that argument. So
Yeah.
for those reasons, just to almost defend the department, these standards are super important.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jeremiah, just a quick question for you. I know we're talking about calculating cleaning areas, but what about cleaning standards themselves? And
Yeah.
so kind of share with me what you guys do there as far as so everybody's doing this, has the same level of competency, if you will.
Yeah, we do some cross training with new employees that come in for a couple days where they will work alongside of somebody else. We do have a written standard. So one of the first things I did, it's probably old and dusty at this point, but in 2013 was I pulled together a committee and said, what does a clean classroom look like? And we articulated that. And we did that for each space, and we all came to an agreement, and everybody's like, all right, this is our standard here. And then we do our cleaning checklist based off that standard. So when we're doing our inspections, we're able to, confirm that they're meeting the thresholds that we have. So that is really how we established our standard. There are national standards that we use to make this calculation. So when you see on this sheet here, classroom square footage, 15,000 square feet, there is a national average that it takes to fully clean a classroom to a certain standard. I think I've seen this pinwheel thing at WASBO or at one of the conferences where you can actually rate your level of cleanliness. And on the previous slide, ours was like moderate. So I'd agree. We're like a moderate clean in classrooms. We do a lot of focus on keeping the halls and corridors clean, so it keeps things out of the classroom from coming in. Yeah. How about you? How do you establish your standards?
Yeah, so we did kind of the very similar. So we have cleaning standards that are written on paper. But of course, we haven't changed those as quickly as we've lost staff, right? So, and quickly as we've changed some things. So one of the things that we've incorporated, we did this last month and it was a really good training session. We took what we've identified as our best cleaners. And so looking at the standards that we have and looking at who does the best job with their bathrooms, we asked those two individuals if they would be willing to train the rest of the staff, and then we made it mandatory. And even for the staff that have been here 20 years, are like, do I really have to come to this? Yeah, you do, because we're trying to up our level of standards, and we've had a big turnover since not because people are leaving the job because they don't like it, because we've had a lot of retirements and a lot of
Yeah.
young people. And so we're having our own staff doing the training as opposed to us or a contractor doing the training. And so that was very well received. And so we started off with bathroom cleaning. We're going to classroom cleaning next, and then we'll break that down into certain areas. But we're using our own staff to do that now, and it's worked out really well.
Nice. You'd mentioned the structure of staffing in our schools. So we have 6 schools. 4 of them are really big, like over 100,000 square feet, probably maybe closer to 150,000 square feet. And then our high school is 500,000 square feet. So our staffing model is we have a daytime person at all the bigger schools that we call an operations supervisor. They're a working manager where they're managing what their people do at night as far as like passing along things, establishing work orders, being connected with the building leadership team, uh, helping with lunches, taking calls. But they also manage small projects and various duties throughout the district. It's really helped with me to have like a shared leadership model. They are salaried. They go beyond their 8-hour day for sure on a normal basis. So I think on an aspect of we pay them more, but we're probably winning on the overtime stretch. And then most of those schools have a daytime person that either comes in super early, cleans an area and does lunch, or stays a little bit later after school. But all of them have, I'd say, 20,000 square foot areas to clean too. So the bigger schools, we do have 2 people during the day. I've found that as far as what I've seen in other districts, we are very fortunate to have that. But we've
Mhm.
levered it to the full and have really talented people that are doing really good things in those roles. And then our smaller schools, we have head custodian, just a daytime, and a evening custodian there too. But that's how we've structured.
Yeah, that's very
Hey,
similar to us. At the two high schools, we do have two people during the day. One comes in at 6 a.m., the others come in at 8, so they can cover that lunch period as well. And so, yeah, very similar structure. We call them different things, but they're doing basically the same thing you are.
hey, Jeremiah, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, please.
So in the chat, Nancy, who's a Gillette, asks, yeah, would you recommend this process? I think meaning like, defining your standards. Would you recommend this process for a small district with a staff of 7? And this is this interesting second part. We are going to referendum in April, and I'm wondering if this is worth, the deep dive, worth the effort. We've all got time constraints, but you guys have an opinion on that?
Yeah.
I have a few thoughts, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yes. Actually, I talked to a superintendent yesterday evening in a very similar boat, and they just went through this exercise, and I think it's healthy to do just to ensure that if you're hiring somebody, they can live up to the expectation. You don't want somebody, running ragged and getting injured in the process. So making sure that the space requirements are doable. And if you're going through a referendum and potentially expanding your facilities, you want to make sure that you incorporate enough time for either hiring a new person or making sure your current staff can realistically absorb it. Because if they're absorbing it, what's going to take the hit? Is it going to be longer lag time on work orders, or is it going to be, various things, so I don't know, Joe?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I would think even at that level, it's very important to have those standards. And so what it allows you to do, and maybe you have a perfectly great staff of 7 people right now, but there will eventually be some changeover. And so it helps to have these standards as you bring new people in as well. And so I think everything that Jeremiah said was spot on. I think it'd be well worth your
Yeah.
time and effort.
So do I. I think, yeah, this referendum world that we live in is very different. And if let's say you're in Gillette and you're going for an operating referendum, often our taxpayers, this is true of all of us, sometimes we get a little grumpy and be like, school district's wasting money, why do you have so many custodians? Might be, something that someone would ask you at a public meeting about, or like a public hearing about a referendum. And being able to say, look, yeah, we've got 7 people in that department, but they've got this many square feet, and they're right in line with everybody else in our region,
Mhm.
would be a way to kind of put that issue, uh, to get kind of resolve that issue before it becomes like a problem. But you've got to have the facts on your side, right? Facts matter. So Nancy, one of the great things about WASBO is we don't compete with each other. We help each other, and just reach out to WASBO. We can give you the names of some of the facility directors who are really good at this and could help you through it. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Jeremiah as well, we would be willing to share our cleaning standards. What does that look like? How do we clean rooms and what do we say with anybody who
Yeah.
would like that? Yeah.
Yeah, this slide looks like it has nothing to do with anything, but this was part of my board presentation. So like Joe, we do a once a year presentation. We talk about projects that have been completed, projects that are coming up, and really just anything regarding staff, utilities, just it's just a good one-stop shot of like everything we're going through. And our board requests transparency. So when we're struggling with utility bills, they want to hear about it and what we're doing. So this was my opening slide. Uh, After adding 200,000 square feet of facilities, I was able to share like, hey, we have almost 1.1 million square feet of facilities, which is actually bigger than the US Bank building in downtown. So, putting in perspective the work that our, 38 custodial staff are doing every night, essentially is equivalent to a high-rise building in Milwaukee or 604 average home cleanings. Like imagine having to have that type of route. We also articulated the acres that we have, the square foot of parking lots, and it's just a good visual. If you can try to put a visual to what you're actually doing, I think it helps communicate. So when someone says, "Hey, you're overstaffed," like, well, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I loved what you did. I do something similar. One of the things that I have on there is that we have 127 acres of roofs. And that
Yeah.
really, that just people are shocked by that. But I also use that whenever I'm doing a community presentation to people so they get an idea of the operation that we're doing. But I loved yours. I think anytime that we can take that and put it into terms other people can understand,
Yeah.
it's eye-opening for them.
Yeah. Right on. Other positions we haven't talked about, but I think a lot of our departments end up being a catch-all. So we have a performing arts center where we have a director, and then we have an additional custodial lighting person. So he's like a jack of all trades. He helps us with our board meetings. So he's in our department. And then we have a driver. So we essentially have all of our food made at our high school and then distributed out to both our schools and the private schools. So he falls under our department as well. Do you have any ancillary services that fall under you?
Yeah, we do. We have two drivers as well, because we have kitchens that we deliver food from, and so they do that in the morning. And so do nothing but deliver food in the morning and mail in between the schools. And then in the afternoon, they're doing other tasks as well. We're
Yeah.
moving things
Yeah.
around for, it seems to be in La Crosse, we have a lot of activities outside of the school buildings as well. And so a lot of times they're moving that type of equipment, music equipment or different things. But yeah, we have two drivers.
Yeah. If anybody ever wants to just do a fun exercise, like trade jobs with some folks, we did a fun experiment like a year ago where we switched jobs with other people. On one instance, I filled in for the driver, and you learn a lot about the driver's day. Like it is not like an easy route to get to every school with all the food when it's freezing cold or raining. And then the inter-office mail, I laughed when you said that because I had to do the mail, and you get to the mail run, and you get to every school, and then you get to the last school, and they have something to go to two other schools. So it's like never over. It's just you're constantly going everywhere.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Jeremiah, Jeremiah, that's great that you did that. That it keeps it real, and I'm glad that you're not. Sometimes people when they get into management, they get a little bit, above that. That's awesome that you do a job switching thing and for your whole staff too. Great
yeah.
idea. I'm
No,
sorry, Joe.
I haven't done the job, but I've driven along with the truck drivers before. And I was just gonna say, as you mentioned, um, don't go on a snowy, rainy day because you realize how much tougher their job becomes when the weather is bad.
Right.
All right. Contracted cleaning services. I'll start by sharing in 2013 when I started in this leadership role, there was this huge fear of outsourcing cleaning services. I think some of our neighbors were going through it, and it was like a taboo topic, and we didn't go down that route. We've dipped our toes for like supplementary needs when we have like so many people out that we have to, but thought we would just throw out there all the pros and cons, noting we probably have some WASBO partners out there that are cleaning contractors. We're just gonna share our experience and yeah. So Joe, what do you guys do and what's been your experience?
Yeah, so we have not contracted out any services as it relates to custodial cleaning. Now we do, what we've done is because of our staffing changes, we do contract a portion of our snow removal. So we do half of our schools and we contract the other halves for snow removal. But far as custodial cleaning, um, we've been approached, and there was times I think during COVID or right after COVID where we weren't getting applicants. It was a thought process, but we've decided not to do that. And the only experience I have, and this is not to take away from anybody who's doing it, I worked at a medical center here in town, very large one, before here, and we're talking 26 years ago, and they made the decision to save money to go to a contracted services. And so I watched it from afar. I wasn't in that department. And so for their environmental cleaners. And so that didn't work out well for them. And they went back to eventually after that contract was over. And the biggest thing was what they were saying is that they didn't have employees invested at the same level that they were when they were hospital employees. And so that's my only experience in that direction. But we do contract out from the standpoint of snow removal, but we have not proceeded. And at this point, I would be reluctant to do so because we have a fully staffed, we have good staff. And so that's where we're at it right now.
Yeah, we're kind of going through a financial analysis by us because we have used them for supplementary cleaning. I think the first couple of things we learned, and I'm just being open and honest, is a lot of the contractors, the higher ups will tell you you're likely not going to get somebody that speaks English, so you have to be prepared for a potential language barrier. Some other districts around us have seen like 100% turnover rate within a year, so like you may not be accustomed to seeing the same person every night, but you're able to contact someone and say, send me someone else. So it's a difference, like you're talking about that investment where you might be seeing someone different each night. With that, one of our experiences was kind of funny, but we had a guy coming and bringing like his whole family to clean. And, I guess it's kind of cute, but at the same time, like, who are these other people? Like, we hired this one person. So you just get these one-off things, which we always have interesting HR things in the custodial department anyways, but it just further complicates that. Their standards might not be the same as yours. So then you're talking to their manager and trying to get a better result out of it. But for us, if we're going to go down the path, it's going to be supplementary cleaning and trying to keep it as basic as possible. Like you're in this wing, do this and leave type of thing. Whereas we need to maintain services for all the activities that are happening, the snow removal, the maintenance.
Yeah.
That's why I continue to try to communicate with the board all of the other things that we're doing. Aside from that, some of the pros that I've heard from neighbors is that like it takes the HR thing off of you where you're just you're calling the manager, give me someone new. This isn't working out. You're not having to go through the hiring process. When we're posting part-time jobs, we can have an opening for like months before we get one applicant. So if you're able to just tap on a contractor and get somebody next day, that's helpful. Yeah, those are some of the pros. Sometimes also they bring their own equipment too. I know districts that will contract out, they provide all the scrubbers, all of the toiletries, gloves, everything. So it takes a little bit of that off of you as well. As far as the financial analysis goes, we're paying with benefits, the custodians, maybe $20 to $24 an hour. It's washing out to be about 60 grand with benefits. When you're looking at a full-time contracted service, the numbers aren't coming in all that more compelling. They're like upwards of 50. So it's like to squeeze that 10 grand, what are you gonna sacrifice for that? I guess is the question. And maybe there's cheaper folks out there listening right now, like, hey, get a bid from us. So
Yeah. Well, I've been around for a while, so I've seen the different versions of this. I think back before Act 10, when it was a um, kind of a classic old-fashioned union versus management sort of butting heads constantly. Um, lots of grievances and all that kind of stuff. Arbitration hearing is just, it was like, I think a lot of the business officials and maybe facility directors were like, man, I can't wait to get out from underneath this. This is killing me. Rightly or wrongly, that's how they felt. So there was a little rush of that after Act 10, which lines up with your timeline, Jeremiah.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I don't know. I've done this for a long time, and I keep saying that. But my experience taught me um, that contracted services can work in, like you said, in a supplemental or supplementary sort of lane, but not so much as your main thing. I mean, because obviously the owner of the contracting company has to take their profit out of this equation, so you're not really getting anything for that. Um, I just felt like the loyalty and um, the deep knowledge and the ownership that comes with being at a place for many, many years, and the trust and all that is kind of hard to quantify financially, but you definitely lose something when you have employees who are that disconnected from the employer and from the work. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I've kind of felt the same way, Mike. On the chat, we had someone ask, they said, Steve Guston said, we hire a couple of our bus drivers as summer
Yeah.
help as
Mhm.
groundkeepers. And so my question to you,
That's good.
Jeremiah, and I think that's a great idea, what that he brought up there. Do you do any of that for additional summer help that I wouldn't necessarily call it contracted cleaning, but bringing outside people?
Yeah, yeah, we are really fortunate. We've always had a great pool of student workers, and occasionally we'll have like paraprofessionals that will join the summer cruise as well. So we hire about 15 people throughout the summer to help us, and that helps our custodial staff to be able to actually take the vacation time we afford them to have because it's hard for them to take it during the school year. Um, in addition to that, we hire up a couple extra kids to do outside grounds work and stuff like that as well. One thing, strategy might be, as we're on the topic, we've had part-time openings that we've been able to fill with students in the right place at the right time. So we found that students generally, like high school students, have a hard time working 5 days a week, whether it's activities or just staying up on their schoolwork. So we've gone to like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday slot for a high school student, and then hire another one for Tuesday, Thursday, and let them kind of work their schedules out. And the nice thing is they don't work weekends and they pretty much can stay at school and then, continue their day on from when the school day ends.
Yeah.
So that's been a strategy that's been helpful. Also comes with its pitfalls, such as you don't want your student workers like going through the cabinets of their teachers to find test scores, which may not have happened by
Oh my
me.
gosh, that's great. Hey, Jeremiah, let me clarify one other thing I mentioned earlier. So before Act 10, districts didn't do a lot of contracting because they like literally couldn't, because the
Hmm.
work belonged to the bargaining unit. So after Act 10, like as I mentioned, some districts kind of went in this direction. It was just kind of this newfound freedom to go out and potentially hire contracted cleaning services. But at the same time, after Act 10 went into place, a lot of the impediments to good, relations between staff and management went away, right? Um, there's really no um, no barriers there. If you have a management team that's committed to good hiring and good training and fair and reasonable salaries and benefits, I don't see how some third party could necessarily do that any better than you could.
Yeah,
That's and I mean again for the core services. There are lots of other ancillary services, maybe when you get super busy, or maybe when you're trying to bring a new school online, you've only got 2 weeks to get it clean, or summer services or what have you that are
yeah,
around those core services. And that's a different story. In fact, I had one building years ago that was sort of way out in the middle of nowhere. It was a small little school. And it was so disconnected that they literally had somebody who would just come in and clean that was completely separate from the normal operation. So I don't want to just like completely rule it out. I think it is a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that you don't look at it as like some great panacea. And often, sometimes board members will come in and say, "Well, in my business, we contract out and we
yeah.
save all this money, blah blah blah." I would take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Plus,
And I think
running a school is a lot more complicated than running an office for adults.
for sure. And I just want to go back, Jeremiah, we hire some summer staff as well. Primarily staff TAs or teachers who want to work during the summer. And so we've been very fortunate. We hire four. Last year we hired four, and knowing that you hired 15, I'm going to try to get more next year. But
Yeah.
we hired four, which is a huge help. And generally we've worked with them. We don't have part-time employees in the school district of La Crosse, but for those summer workers, a teacher who wants to work grounds, we'll let them take Fridays off and work 4 days a week. And it's been very
Yeah.
helpful for us as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had
And
a,
go ahead,
I'm
man.
sorry, we had one of the places I worked where we had a lot of summer students, high school students helping in the summer. And part of what they got in exchange beyond the salary was we would write a very nice letter for them that was intended to be part of their college application portfolio. It would say, we trusted this, we put this person in a position of trust and leadership, and they did great, and we're very proud of them, and so on. And so that was nice to be able to help them out with that.
Yeah. Yeah, when I say with the number we have, we used to have far less, but we found that the students just can't commit to like the summer. They'll have 2 weeks vacation and then they'll have they're in weightlifting club or whatever sport, you name it, which is a great problem to have. So it's like none of them can do a 40-hour week anymore. It's like we're lucky if we get 15 hours out of some of them. So we've kind of stacked the deck and take what we can get. And I agree with you, Mike, too. Like I've had such a strong connection with some of our summer work that went on. One of them is actually our legal counsel now through Von Briesen, and he was my student worker back in like '08. So it's always great keeping
That's
in contact.
great.
Yeah, yeah,
That's an awesome story.
yeah. All right, flipping, we've talked a little bit about it, so we don't have to go in great depth, but in our district, we have 40,000 hours of after-school use. More than 50% of that is outside rentals or usage of our facilities. And when you take that 40,000 hours, it's equal to keeping one school building open 24 hours a day for 3 straight years. So like the community is really tapping on us to use the facilities. Our revenues are pitiful, but we're proud to open our building to the people of the community. These are taxpayer funded things. So it's kind of a philosophical thing, but really it's like cleanup and setup and, all of the different things that come with it. Are you guys similar? Are you finding, Joe, that you guys are like community centers at night?
Oh, for sure. One of the things we do report again to the board, and last year we're over 44,000, I think 48,000 hours beyond the school day, just that you're talking about. We have it documented by whoever, and you're right, we don't bring in nearly the amount of revenue, right, for those activities, but it really, my biggest concern with all of that is burning our people out because the amount of overtime that they have to work, and specifically from November through March, those winter months. And so it's something we're constantly looking at. And so one of the things we try to funnel everything to the two high schools if we can, but that's even impossible because we have to open up the other schools as well. But we try to do that just to limit the amount of people that we have to have. But that's my biggest concern is burning our people out. And we do hear that, but they are community buildings. They're the ones paying for them. We're excited for them to use the facilities.
Yeah, you might want to talk to your business official about Fund 80, the Community Service Fund, and how that factors in to support these community use of the facilities. You shouldn't
Th-
have to be cutting into your instructional program to do
Yeah.
it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mike, for saying that because I was going to bring that up. We do
yeah,
use Fund 80 for a lot of the things that you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, yeah, agreed. I think the things that, like you're saying, Joe, some workarounds we've had is establishing relationships with the heads of these organizations, creating contracts that we're going to give you a fob to come in. We may have to come do cleanup after you're done, but we've allowed some autonomy in our community with fobs and agreements that coaches can come in and do practice. We're still going to charge you for it, but we're not going to charge the custodial time. which is saving them money, but also we couldn't cover if we wanted to. All the requests we have, like we'll have a basketball camp at the summer and during the summer, which is our prime restoration time every night of the week. So it's like
Yeah.
we don't want to shift our staff down to work at night, and we don't want to charge them $70 an hour to use our gym for practice. So there's some give and take, and I think it's all up to the appetite of your community and what your expectations are.
Yeah, for us, we have a standard rule in the district. If anybody outside is using our facilities, we have to have a custodian on staff. And so,
Right.
or anytime there's students in the building, we have to have a custodian on staff. And so we've done that. One of the things that we've done is at our two high schools, we have someone working second shift all year round because of the non-summer activities. And some people like that. A few years ago, we tried something and we tried a Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift. They worked 12-hour days, got paid for 40. Um,
Wow.
we did that. We did a trial for like 2 years, and with vacation time and holidays, it didn't pay for itself. But I'm really looking at going back to something, um, pursuing that. It didn't work the first time, but I think if we made some adaptions, maybe we can make that work again, just to keep our people from getting burned out.
Yeah. Yeah, we also struggle with it. We hired a weekend person. We wanted them to do pool checks, so we got them to be a certified pool operator. As soon as they got the certification, like a normal shift opened up and they wanted to sign into it. And who am I to say, like, you can't better take care of your family?
Right.
So we let them slide in. We hired again. And then that person ended up leaving the district. So it was like a continual, I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody wants to stay on that lifestyle.
right.
Right.
And so it's very
We had so much demand for after school that we had to create I wonder if you guys have this, like a pecking order, a priority order. Like it had to be like local youth group, like gets priority over adult group type
yes.
of thing. And the big trouble we always had was when group A runs over their allotted time
Yeah.
because their pickup basketball game went into overtime and they expect everybody else to sit there and wait. And it was like, no, there's no such thing as overtime when you're renting the facility. You get your hour, that's it, get out of here. And then sometimes the custodians would be brought in to kind of resolve this dispute between the two clubs or whatever. And I always felt like that was not their job.
No, you brought a good point. We have in our building use policy, we have we have a structure of who his priority and what that
Yeah,
order is. Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
nice.
Yeah.
I touched briefly on titles. One thing I'd share is other districts, they've just titled things a little differently, and I think there is a little bit of pride. So I know a neighbor to us went from head custodian to building managers or building leads. Just something, I guess, as you're thinking about their future employability and what they're going to put on their resume, it is helpful to say, "Hey, I'm this," regardless of
Mm,
what's happening with the role. I'll say for us, it's a game changer to have some salaried folks that are expected to answer after hour calls and be more managerial in their tasks of taking care of the folks that are under them. It allows me not to be in the weeds as much at the schools and keeps them at the helm of supervising and the ability for them to take on more things than just their school. And I think that people that are engaged in their job want to do more, they want to learn more, they want to be a part of something bigger than what they're doing. So our staff that are supervisors have welcomed that and enjoy taking on additional responsibilities. There is an added cost, but I still feel like the overtime that a head custodian does probably is very close to a salaried employee. So something to think about.
mm,
I like what you've done, Jeremiah, in the fact that our engineer positions, our lead people are still hourly, but I like that what you've done there. But one of the things, and you touched on a good point, three of the managers that I've hired over the years have come from those lead positions at those schools. And so, number one, you're training these people, they want to do bigger things. And so we've taken their experience, and that's been really good. And that sends a message to the staff that you have those capabilities to move up in your current work structure. So I think that's great what you're doing there.
There is
Yeah,
one labor.
in
Go ahead.
Madison, when Chad Weezy was running and they shopped there, at the end of the school year, start of the summer cleaning season, he used to give everybody a few t-shirts, just for this summer work, and they said Madison Metropolitan School District on them, and then it just said staff. It didn't say custodial staff. It just said staff. And he was like, well, we're on the same team here. And I liked that approach. And I used to see those t-shirts everywhere in Madison. Like at the farmers market or whatever. They like wearing
Mike,
them. I
Mike,
don't
to
know. I
go
just thought
along,
I thought it was a nice way to approach it.
Mike, to go along with that, and I know there's other districts out there have done this. So, what we wanted to do is we wanted our staff to be treated more professionally, right? And if you're going to do that,
Yeah.
then be professional. So we every year we buy three new shirts. They say buildings and grounds on them with the district logo, and they're collared shirts. And the expectation is when there's events or school is in session, that's what they wear. And it's kind of what you talked about, taking pride in the department. I know there's other districts because I've seen that around the state that do that as well.
We've been shifted significantly from the blue dungarees, which is, I think I still have some in my closet from when I was a custodian, to just really district swag. Like everybody wears, the logo of our high school team, the Warriors. So we give everybody a $200 a year allowance, and we have a local partner that they get a magazine that they can order from. As long as they have enough shirts, they could have like one jacket for the year or something, whatever that $200 gets them. So it's always fun to see what people order.
Yeah.
All right, another big topic. We could probably spend another hour on this. I know a lot of folks maybe have an in-house electrician or an HVAC contractor, or folks like myself just have some general maintenance grounds guys that can get their way through a problem. What does your structure look like for skilled trades, Joe?
Yeah, for the skills trades, we've looked at this over the years, but we contract that out. So I, we have certain contractors that we use for electrical, HVAC, and we just found that they're better experienced. Our lead engineers learn a lot from them when they come through and do the basics, but when we need anything more than that, we bring outside people in to do that.
One strategy you might leverage your business manager in is take a look at all of your main players as far as like your electricians you outsource, your HVAC, all of that, and take a look at like a 5-year trend of what you've spent with them to say, maybe we should go in-house with this. We've been spending on 350 grand on HVAC every year for a PM contract. Maybe we can get somebody for 120 with benefits and have to purchase a van or something, but at some point maybe we'll win that battle. But there's all
Yeah.
risk involved because if you have a major thing go like a chiller or a rooftop, you're still going to be spending that 100 grand to replace something like that.
Yeah.
Any good questions and before we tackle the last topic?
A couple of questions that popped up on the chat. One is from Carla, who asks, I feel like a radio guy. What is the main difference? What is the main difference between a lead custodian and a building manager? What's the main difference? I think this might
Yeah.
get into like supervision responsibilities. Depends really. Go ahead.
Yeah, there is actually some Fair Labor Standards Act language around how much labor a supervisor that's salaried can do, and it has to be no more than half of the shift. So you should be managing thought work, people, processes for half of the shift, and you could be doing CAF setups or maintenance the other half as far as the law is concerned. So you can't have somebody be a salaried supervisor and give them a cleaning area to work 8 hours a day and then tell them to do
Right.
2 hours of overtime.
Right. The root is that the root of this is that they don't want management exploiting the worker by saying we're just going to give you a flat salary. So the bias is towards, if there's real work there to be done, that should be hourly, right? If you're truly managing in sort of a white collar way, then you can be on salary and keep a distinction between those two. And your HR person should should be able to guide you, or your labor attorney if you have to go that far. But that's the root of it. And then the other was just a comment from Nancy, um, saying she's all on board with the t-shirts. So there you go. Maybe we're going to start a big trend here. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as staffing reductions go, we've ebbed and flowed over the years in my role, and it's trying to figure out. I'd say hopefully if you can control the narrative, that's the most important, and that starts with having good data, good standards, telling your story so that you can navigate how this goes versus somebody telling you, your business manager or superintendent, that second shift custodian at this elementary school is gone. Like try to be in the driver's seat and using the data you have to find the least painful part. And maybe if you have an operating budget that's, you got a little bit of fluff in, can you buy a position and say, look, I'll reduce my capital budget or my operations budget to try to keep this person because it's that mission critical. So I think just examining each area, trying to find areas to trim is your first step. Joe?
Yeah.
The argument that works best with the business manager is to say, look, we are operating really efficiently on our utilities. We've saved this much money. I need to reinvest it in the department. They love that argument. It works every
Yeah.
time, I promise.
All good ideas. And just so you know, right now we're dealing with that in La Crosse, right? Because we're combining schools and we're
Right.
building new ones and closing, and we call that right sizing. And I think Jeremiah hit it right on the head. You need all the data that you can. And so
Yes.
my custodial staff have come, they're worried we're going to lose people. I said, just relax. Okay, we got data. That's why we're looking at all the things, building use. We're looking at number of work orders that you complete. We're looking at per square footage. We're looking at all those things. And so when we bring that to the table, we're kind of setting that tone right now. So when the time comes, we can justify not reducing our staff as we right size the district. And so that's really important. It starts long before the date comes and they want to cut you. You need to continually get that data together and be working on it and show the increase in work that you've been doing.
The other great argument for the facility director, I'm really giving this away. I hope there aren't too many business managers on this call because they're going to get mad at me. The other one is, yeah, if you cut my custodian, fine, but watch out for my overtime because it's going to go way up and it was probably going to it's going to cost you everything you think you just saved. That's another good argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's
I
possible to
I
do
better,
things,
I gotta stop talking.
if it's possible to do things through attrition a little bit easier too, rather than doing
Oh,
a swipe.
absolutely.
It's like, hey, this person they're planning on retiring in 6 months. Let's start to study
Yeah.
how we can divvy up duties. So, hey,
Yeah.
with that, great topic. We talked a lot about cleaning areas, square footages, data. These are all things that I hope that facilities managers can put some time into to be able to better tell your stories and be a partner at the table with your leadership team and your school board. So good
Hey,
stuff.
Jeremiah, I've got some announcements. We got time for a couple of announcements?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so this is the WASBO infomercial. First, I wanna hype up a couple of things. The big Wisconsin Facility Management and Safety Conference is coming up February 2nd and 3rd. So take 5 minutes on a Friday, work your calendar, get that into your calendar now. The Facility Management Conference, February 2nd and 3rd at the Kalahari. It's kind of a gathering of the whole tribe too. You'll see everybody there. And then in addition to that, a couple more I want to mention. Um, Jeremiah is teaching a class for WASBO University called Finance for the Facilities Director, which we touched on a little bit here. I'm hoping to be a guest appearance on that course. That one starts in February 5th. Great course. And then Andy Weiland, who's one of the co-hosts on Money Talks. Andy's in Oregon. He's got a WASBO U course starting February 23rd on sustainable facilities and operations. Oregon School District is kind of a leader in this area. They've got like one of those super green schools, Forest Edge Elementary. So those are some WASBO U classes. And then one more to mention, two more. Um, what used to be called Certified School Risk Manager Program, CSRM, we completely redid it. It's now the Wisconsin School Risk Management Program. It's our own people, our own curriculum. And the next group of that starts in January. So it's called WSRM. Look for that. It's a great certification to have. And lastly, if you're involved in transportation, the next transportation tidbits is December 3rd. Lots of PD going on at WASBO these days. And we're on again pretty soon, aren't we? With Beyond the Pale? I think we're on again December
December.
4th with a really
Yeah.
cool AI session.
Yeah. We'll talk about some practical uses of AI. We'll have Danielle as a resident expert to show us potential ways of navigating. And I think this is ever evolving. So please join us. I learn something new with AI like once a week. So I think we're better when we're bouncing ideas off each other than just randomly searching stuff. So good stuff.
Yes.
Joe, any
Thanks
last
for-
comments?
No, just a great day, and thank you for joining us. And I look forward to the AI. I'm probably one of those people who's been slow to jump on board. So looking forward to talking about that.
Well, we won't see you guys until after Thanksgiving, so hope you all get a chance to enjoy a nice Thanksgiving um, uh, holiday with friends and family. And we'll look for you on December 4th for AI. Until then, have a great Thursday and Friday. We'll see you down the road.